secondary assessment and special pop overview. So we are going to talk about students in our special pop program, how we go about supporting them, what are the resources that are available for them. There is definitely a lot of information that is going to be coming your way in this block of time. And so I just need you to sort of like get mentally prepared for this. There is a lot that goes into being a teacher, right? Anybody who is in like year 2, right, you are a late hire, you know, there is a lot that goes into being a classroom teacher. And to support our special population students is going to take extra. It's going to take more. It's going to take different. And it's not going to be the same for every single student, right? There's not going to be like, oh, here's the one strategy that works for every single one of your special population students. And you're going to get extensive training at the campus, extensive support, and you're going to learn a lot about what it takes to meet the needs of your kids. I have a daughter with ADHD, and I will tell you it is no joke. She really has ADHD. She is 15 years old, and every single year when we get to meet the new teachers, I was like, hi, let me spend some time telling you about my daughter, Kayla. And they're like, oh, she's gonna be great. I'm like, yes, she absolutely is great. She is absolutely amazing. She is capable of all these things, but here are the things you need to know if you are gonna meet her needs. I am a damn good advocate for my daughter, and you know, you need to be advocates for all of your students. Okay. With that, I'm going to pass this off to Tabette.
All right, so good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah, okay, we got some energy. All right, so keep our energy up because as she stated, this is a very, very like overloaded presentation with a lot of information. And so I'm going to start by saying I will go through the secondary assessment section and then I'll pass it to Keith and we'll go through the special POPs overview. So this entire session is about assessments, right? So I want you to take about 15 seconds to think about why do assessments even exist? Like, what's the purpose of them? Are we just wasting your time? Do we just want to actually, right, is this like busy work? Like, what are we doing here, right? So think about it. Why do assessments exist? And what is the purpose of them? Anybody want to share out why you think assessments exist? Why do you think they exist?
Can we give maybe a little bit more think time?
Oh, they sure. Okay, so I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3 in about 10 seconds. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Okay, tracking students mastery level, good. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, they're checkpoints. Just
Okay.
to make sure they're keeping up.
Okay, different checkpoints to make sure that they're keeping up. And then one more here. I know, those are my hands up here. Okay, that's fine, it's okay. So, at Yes Prep, like, student achievement is one of the strategic priorities, right? And so, up here, you'll see this, and I'm assuming, I believe, it used to be in every classroom, I hope it's back in every classroom. You'll see this, at Yes Prep, the goal is to ensure that in every classroom, every day, all students, and I'll repeat again, all students engage in rigorous, aligned, and active learning, dramatically increasing their college readiness. And we talked a little bit about that college readiness yesterday when Laura presented the learning cycle to you. And so as we go through this presentation, I want you to keep this specific strategic priority in the back of your head, and like it'll help you understand how are we actually meeting this need through our internal assessments. All right, so again, this PowerPoint in this session is actually split into 2 different parts, right? So the first part focuses on the assessments. Can I get somebody to read the yellow objectives loud and proud?
Become familiar with all assessments given at Yes Prep and make connections between external and internal assessments.
Thank you so much. And for the special populations portion, can I get somebody to read the blue objectives loud and proud? Go ahead.
Differentiate between different types of test versions given at Yes Prep. And become familiar with special POPs resources to facilitate accessible learning and testing.
Yes, so we're gonna become familiar with our internal assessments, external, and then we're gonna learn a lot about our lovely special populations. So up here, this is a slide that has a lot of stuff on it, right? These are all of the external assessments that your students are gonna have access to as they matriculate through Yes Prep. From 6th grade to 12th grade, every student is going to have some type of touch point with each one of these external assessments, okay? So I'll go through and explain them. It'll take a little bit of time, but I'll explain them. So starting at the top, MAP is one of those exams. If you are from a different state, sometimes it's called like NWEA. I know I realized that in Illinois, we didn't really necessarily call it MAP, but the students are gonna take the MAP test, and that's a computerized test that's adaptive. And so what that means is like, it's going to actually get more rigorous, based on how they answer the questions, right? So that's where the MAP test goes. The students take the MAP test in, their intervention courses, and then there are some days, so like Math 8 and Algebra 1 8th grade, you'll see it in your calendar. There are days blocked off for students to take those inside of your course, okay? Then we have the SAT school day. Most people know about the SAT. I'm probably the only person that has never taken the SAT in this room, but the SAT is, we all know, a national exam that our students take. They take them as juniors and seniors. Then we have those nice AP exams. So our students that are in those AP courses, they take those at the end of May. We have TSIA. That specifically is an assessment that helps colleges and universities determine where the students are in their college level readiness. So if they take that exam and they don't score college ready, that means they will have to go and be in sort of like a remedial course, right? To get your credit, UT High School, University of Texas at Austin, the high school. For this one specifically, that's an exam to receive high school credit. This is administered for Spanish credits without prior instruction. So there are some students, and I think it happens typically in like 8th grade, where students, they take this exam and it places them, they'll get maybe they'll get in like Spanish 3, so they'll automatically get the credit from 1 and 2, okay? Then we have, I'll do TELPAS first. So we have TELPAS. That is an assessment that our English language learners take at the end of the year. It's a very, very, very big deal. They take it and they have their different domains. They have their listening, their speaking, their reading and writing. Very big deal, because here at Yes Prep, we do have a large English language learner population. And then the one that most of us are familiar with, the NICE STAR exam, right, that has been redesigned. That is our accountability exam that we take every year, and that our middle school and high school students are going to be exposed to. So as you see, we have a lot of external assessments that students are going to be interacting with in some way, shape, or form. And then we think about, how does that lead to our internal assessments, right? All of our internal assessments are designed to ensure that it is aligned with the STAR test or the AP exam, right? So if you're an AP course, we are gonna make sure that it is aligned to what students are gonna be exposed to on the AP exam. And then for the courses 6 through Algebra 1, 9th grade, so 8th, 9th grade, all of our work and our assessments are 100% aligned to the STAR. We talked about this in the different sessions yesterday, even this morning in your text tool session, and Laura Brenton touched on how IXL is very interactive. They have these interactive question types, right? That is because there was a redesign of the STAR, and the interactive question types are there. So we as a district, our job is to make sure the kids are exposed, and that is what we have done for alignment. Go ahead.
Okay, I want to just insert a processing opportunity here. Tonight, can you go back to the other slide? Okay, you just got like information overload on all of these assessments. What I want you to do is at your table, come up with at least 5 facts that you just picked up from this presentation. Okay, so like little group think over here, the 3 of you, the 4 of you, the 5 of you, 5 facts that you now know about those assessments.
That's the college readiness.
CSI, those tests you take, high school, CQ, prepared.
Is it TS? So again, for me to produce
Well, I don't know.
All right, let's close it out in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, let's take 3 clarifying questions. Something that you heard and you're like, I'm not sure that I heard that correctly, or I'm not sure that I understood this. 3 clarifying questions.
Can you touch up on the TSI again?
So the TSI is a test that our students are going to take that is going to, it is a way they can demonstrate college readiness. They can demonstrate college readiness by hitting like a particular score on the SAT exam, on both the math and the verbal. And if they hit that, that demonstrates college readiness, and they're good. But the TSI is another exam that you can do. The T stands for Texas, right? And so this is a specific Texas Success Initiative. And starting this year, all of our students in Algebra 2 are going to take it in, whether they're a sophomore or a junior, they're going to take that at campus, built into the day, because this is another opportunity to demonstrate college readiness. Yes, ma'am.
So I had a question. I'm not from Texas, but my question is, so I know like where I'm from, which is Virginia, we have to take the SAT to like graduate.
Yeah.
So is the SAT and the TSI like required for students, or is it they choose one or the other?
So in the college admissions world, life has changed drastically, I think, since, I know for sure when I went through it, but even when like my daughter, who is now going to be a sophomore at William & Mary in Virginia, it's changed. Like most schools now are test optional. You can take the SAT if you want to. We have that as an expectation for our students. Whether they report the scores or not is their decision. But we do that, like we have our kids take the SAT and during the school day on campus. We build in that time into our curriculum to make that happen so that they test in an environment that is comfortable, it is friendly, they are known, they're not going off to like some random high school with paper test. Yes, ma'am.
I do also want to point out, there was an assumption that students take every one of these exams every year. That is not what this means. So for example, if you are a 6th grade student, you will be exposed to math and STAR. And maybe if you're an English language learner, you'll be exposed to TELPAS. But if you are not, you wouldn't take every one of these exams like every year. That's a lot of exams. And so yeah, we can ease
And
our
6th
mind.
graders don't take AP exams yet.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, so on the screen, what you all will see here, this is a calendar of events, right? So we talked about these external assessments and when they, but here it shows you when they're going to actually be happening, right? And so you'll see just like a timeline of when these things are happening, right? MAP testing happens in the fall. The TSIA happens in the fall. There's a winter MAP version. That's nice, right? There's a winter STAR for our high school teachers. All of the high school students who did not pass their test, they get to retest in the winter. Then we see in the spring, there's a shift to TELPAS, and then we have STAR followed by AP, right? And so I wanna just make sure that on here, what I emphasize with you all, there are a lot of assessments up here. You'll get information in training from your campuses about what the proctoring and whatnot looks like for these things. But as math teachers, what you may end up having to do is there may be somebody like your literacy specialist for TELPAS, right? They're gonna hit you up and they'll say, hey, I need you to actually give me some samples, right? I need some student samples. Please make sure that you adhere to those timelines, because these timelines up here, they're not mandated by us, they're mandated by the state. So we have to make sure that we remain in compliance when it comes to these assessments. It's not like we thought about the fact that it's almost time for STAR, and we wanna make sure our students are prepared, but you have to give these samples and tell passing, they're pulling students out of your class to test. That has nothing to do with you all, right? It has nothing to do with us, it has something to do with the fact that this is the deadline that Texas has actually provided us with, okay? So when you see those requests coming, because they will come, please make sure that you try your hardest, to meet those deadlines for those people that are requesting things, okay? And then before I go to internal assessments, what I did do was tell you all, so this, session is definitely like low tech, we don't necessarily need our technology at all. So if you can half-match your laptops and then make sure that your cell phones are away, that would be great. And then if you need to step out, perfectly fine, you can step out, make the call, and then come back to be fully engaged. Thank you. So here at Yes Prep, right, so we talked about it. We are making sure that all of our internal assessments are going to be aligned and prepare our students for those external assessments. So we have 3 types, right? The first type, oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, sorry, I messed it up. I put something wrong, sorry. Okay, the first type is gonna be the formative assessments. Those are gonna be those in-class quizzes, that students are gonna take, and you'll see them in your assessment, in your unit plans. They say formative assessment 1 or 2. Those are quizzes that students are gonna take. Then we have those summative assessments. The summative assessments are cumulative, right? They're cumulative exams that are given to assess how students are actually going to be, assess their learning on what they have been taught, right? And then we have the big shebang, the one and only, Yes Prep, common assessments, right? The common assessments, traditionally provide internal progress monitor, and data for us to see how are our students doing, and it lets us know how well they are progressing towards that external assessment. So for those STAR courses, it's letting us know, hey, how are the students performing? Are they prepared for their STAR test? And then for AP, it's the exact same thing. And I'll say in the spring, what happens is they are getting the full experience of a STAR exam or the full experience of an AP exam to see how well prepared they are for those tests that are gonna come up in about a month and a half afterwards, okay? And then our common assessments, those are 5% of the student grade, so. So now we're gonna engage in the turn and talk, and we are going to think about which external assessments, if any, have you experienced, right? And if you have, how would you describe that experience, right? So I'll go back to the slide and I can show you the external assessments. Which external assessments have you had any experience with, and what was that experience? All right, take about 2 minutes to talk with your table and go.
And maybe you didn't experience, because you're not from Texas,
Right.
the TSI or STAR, but I bet everyone in the room has had some experience with some external assessment
In some capacity.
at some point in your life.
Well, as a student, I had nothing, but as a teacher.
We'll start. When I was in high school, I graduated in 2005, yeah, that's for a long time. Because they need to be nobody, even if it's just our unit exam, and they get a lot more, they need to have that experience. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm going to have like your free time. And so when they have a start, they are start and the behavior, but they don't have their free time. They have to do something the way they're reading.
All right, now have you guys, eyes to the front in 5, eyes on the front in 4, eyes to the front in 3,
Yeah.
eyes to the front in 2, and then we are almost at 1. All right, would anybody like to share out their experience with the external assessments? I heard some interesting things. Anybody want to share their experience? Go ahead.
I was telling them that for me, I never took the STAR. My class year was the last one to take the tax test. test, I think it was called, and then they switched it to STAR. So I haven't experienced it, but I've seen it when students are taking it, and it's very nerve-wracking.
Yeah. The same thing I was telling. Okay. Sorry. The same thing, I haven't experienced it as a student, but I've seen it also as a teacher when it comes to proctoring, and the STAR test is very different from where I'm from. Anybody else like to share their experience? Yes, ma'am?
I can share, so I've taken, the AP exam and the SAT.
Mhm.
The AP is a lot harder than the SAT. And then there's also like the IB exam, which is not like here, but like that's also its own like quality. But then I was also a testing coordinator for math and STAR and telepath, so, I think telepath is kind of okay for like your ED students too, or like your, Spanish speaking students. STAR, I think it was good for the whole entire student body, but it just depends on the teacher, like if the teacher was like a really good instructor, then the STAR exam was, the scores were like the projected scores right now that we have, were okay.
Yeah.
But math, I liked math because it kind of shows you like throughout the year how as a teacher, like how the teacher was progressing or like if they kind of stayed stagnant.
Mhm.
And then you can also see it per student, so that way you can see like how each student was doing too, and then like a class.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Alright, let's get on this here. Okay, now we're gonna talk about the summative assessment and the common assessment design, right? So here at Yes Prep, the goal is to be vertically aligned with AP, and so all summative assessments and common assessments have a section 1. That section 1 is literally just the multiple choice questions plus and or the interactive question type, right? And then we also have a section 2, which is going to be the free response section. It's known as like FRQs in certain courses, but a lot of what we'll see, a lot of us here, we'll just see it, we call it section 2, okay? And so all of the exams that we have, they are done to actually, well, they are administered through Aware and or on paper, right? So section 1 for every summative and every common assessment is actually going to be administered through Aware, and you'll learn a little bit more about Aware in the upcoming slides. And then those scores are automatically graded, right? Simple, quickly graded for you. You saw yesterday, if you were an Algebra 1 teacher or a student, I could not, well, you did not get your grade immediately because I had to go look and grade your graphs. Inside of Aware, you have that same feature. Students will graph and it will automatically grade it to see if it's correct, okay? Then for section 2, right, section 2, all of the courses, like we said, it is going to be on paper, right? So every student takes section 2 on paper, you as a teacher grade it, but you have to enter those scores into Aware, okay? So to break it down again, every student, section 2 is gonna be on paper, you grade it, and then you enter those scores into Aware, and that's how we average it out to get the report for their grade, okay? Right. So now here, what we have up here is a breakdown of the common assessment again versus the summative assessment. And so these are exams that are actually required for student grades. One more time, they are required for student grades. They're not optional assessments that students can decide, I don't want to take, and they're not optional exams that you as a teacher can say, my students is not taking the common assessment. Doesn't happen. It's a whole day, a whole week of things. You can't really get out of it, right? It's mandatory. And so the exam structure that we have here, you'll see is like, of course, section 1 and section 2. Then the administration, the common assessment is twice a year, one in the fall and one in the spring. And again, it gives you those touch points of where are we, how are our students progressing when it comes to their performance on the STAR test or the AP exam, right? And then for the summative assessments, those you might get through 1 to 2 summative every quarter, right? So I'll give you the example. I know in Algebra 1, you have 2 summatives in that first quarter, but I believe that there's only one in like the geometry, right? There's only one summative that they'll be able to see in that quarter. So every course, regardless, 6 through 12, will have between 1 to 2 summative assessments per quarter, okay? And then in terms of the logistics, right? For the summative assessments, you print that section 2 for yourself. You are responsible for administering it. But for the common assessment, that is something that has like this special schedule. There are specific, materials that you are going to do. It's a whole thing, like I said, but because it's a big deal, it's a district test in which we build, those things are gonna be provided for you, right? We as the content team, we make all of these exams. So we spend all of our time making these exams. I do wanna note, again, just hone in one more time, that for the platform, section 1 is gonna be in the where, section 2 is gonna be on paper, and the same thing is going to be true for common assessments. Even though it's administered on paper, guess what? You're still gonna grade it, we'll grade it together, and then you'll enter your scores in the where, okay? And for the summative assessments, they take that in class, there's a special schedule for that, and I think maybe, I don't know if this is Keith's favorite day, but one of my favorite days is reading day for math. And we'll have a nice reading day, that we'll go through to score that exam. But for the summatives, you score that on your own during your free period. But you have the luxury of being with all of the amazing math teachers, and we get to score the common assessment together. All right, so now we're gonna transition a little bit to the assessment blueprint. And so one of the things that we are going to need is our CAD. So I wanna make sure everybody take about 1 minute to pull out your CAD from yesterday. If you don't have a CAD, you can get one. Yeah, you can get one, so raise your hand if you don't have a CAD, and we'll make sure we try to get you one. I'll go get you. You know where they're at? Yes. Okay.
So you don't administer assessment and exam intervention. The grade for the semester is 50% Q and 50%. So no. I'm saying
Give me a thumbs up once you have your CAD.
the grade.
All right, thank you.
Everything's right, so this will.
Okay, so now, again, we're gonna pivot and we're gonna take some time, right? We learned about the internal and external assessments. Now we're gonna focus on the Yes Prep assessment blueprint. And so now that you have your CADs in front of you, you are going to do a little bit of like a scavenger hunt, right? And so now we're gonna focus on the common assessment blueprint and those content specifically, right? That is gonna be found in your CAD. And what you are going to see for the common assessment blueprint inside of your CAD, you are going to see the dates of assessment, the item type on the exam, content breakdown, how do you actually score these assessments, cut scores, whatever that means, and then which release items are on those assessments, specifically on the common assessment, okay? So now you are going to have 10 minutes and you are going to work in your group, and as you're exploring, like I said, you're gonna see all of these things up here, and what I want you to do is identify the hot items in your course, right? What are the hot items in your course? And I also want you to think about what are the similarities that you see between the common assessment and the summative assessment, okay? So you're gonna go explore, identify all these hot items that you see up here on the screen for your particular course, work with your table and identify what are the similarities that you see between the common assessment and the summative assessment, and you can even think about what are the similarities and differences between the courses at your table, okay? Any questions? All right, go. Yes, please. Eyes to the front in 3. Y'all are good students. I see y'all are great students. And one. Thank you so much. So before we move forward, does anybody have any clarifying questions? I heard some things, we all heard some things that we were walking around. Anybody have some clarifying questions they would like to ask here? Some things, some burning questions.
Okay, so I know that you said the common assessment is 5% of the grade, but what is the other average, or like the weights for like testing as far as, you know, for the other assessments that they take throughout the year?
The formative and the summative assessments?
Does that change for any of the
So within a quarter, within a 9-week grading period, we have 2 categories. You have formative assessments, and I say formative assessments, but what you really hear is probably quizzes. And then you have summative assessments. Formative assessments are 75% of the grade for the quarter. right? I said formative assessments. Formative assessments are 75% of the grade for the quarter. Summative assessments are 25%. So for like Algebra 2 in our single period classes, we need to have 5 to 6 formative assessment grades per quarter, so that each quiz is like 12.5 to 15%, right? We generally provide 4 or 5 of those quizzes already in Aware, and the other 1 or the other 2 can come from your daily formative assessments, your exit tickets, your Delta Math assignments. So we create most of them, and then you'll have another like 1 or 2 that you'll pick up based on our exit tickets and things like that. Okay?
And I think the common assessment coming in at 5%, it comes in for the semester grades, right? So the average, it only happens for those semester grades, right? At the end of semester 1 and at the end of semester 2, that's when it's weighted in.
Yeah. So students will earn a credit in geometry for like the first half of the year by looking at quarter 1 and quarter 2 and common assessment. Common assessment is 5%, so the other 95% is split 47.5, 47.5 between Q1 and Q4.
Yeah. All right, that's a good question.
Middle school, they earn the credit by the year, not by the semester. So we're gonna show you a video about what the Aware experience looks like in just a little bit. In terms of your like getting access, that is coming. That is something that's being worked on behind the scenes with Aware and Skyward and all these other beautiful systems that might just be like, and it's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the 75, is that the same for standard-based grading?
Yes, it is still the same for the standard-based grading. That's a good question. And then I did hear someone ask, like, for the common assessment, was that like an external thing, like somebody else create those? No, again, this is an internal assessment, and the lovely people, right, myself, Keith, Alita, Laura, we create and we write those, common assessment exams. The last question that I heard was whether or not the raw scores go in the grade book. Oh God, no, they do not. No bueno, no bueno, flag on the plate. They don't go in there. It'll be, don't put those raw scores in their grade book, but it's the average scores is what you will actually put in the grade book.
raw scores are set up.
Yeah, the raw scores, no. Okay. So now I'm gonna move in and I'll show you, one of the sections in which you all were actually, that you had seen, right? And we're gonna zoom into like the common assessment. So as you see up here, like we said, with our alignment, section 1 is in Aware, section 2 is on paper. And again, for our courses that are STAR tested, you have the multiple choice and non-multiple choice, AKA the interactive questions that you'll see in a few slides. And for the other courses, just multiple choice, y'all are lucky, right? Section 2, everybody has their, they have open-ended questions, like a free response, and then those are calculator active and inactive. So I do wanna get y'all in the mindset of understanding that there are some things and some skills that students can use their calculator for. I wanna say 8th grade and above, but there are some skills that they cannot. And they are gonna have to show and demonstrate that mastery on the common assessment. So you, as the teacher of record in your course, it's important for you to understand what are those skills that are gonna be assessed and make sure that you are giving those things with fidelity, right? We talk about alignment, and I'll do a little spill here. All of our, Alita, Keith, myself, and Laura can tell you, all of our summative assessments, our formative assessments are built to prepare our students for our common assessment and the STAR. So when we give you those, that's why it's very important to administer your formative assessments and your summative assessments, so that way students are prepared. They have had experience with section 1, they've had experience with section 2, they've had experience with calculator active and non-active. So when they get to the common assessment, it's not anything new, okay? Question, can somebody tell me, on the screen up here, how many questions are actually on the common assessment for this course? How many questions? What do you think? He said at least 20, all right. He said, he said, okay, listen, I'm gonna get at least 20. Right, so it tells you right here the number of questions, and it also tells you the breakdown, right? Section 1 will be 60% of the students' overall score, and section 2 is gonna be 40% of that, right? We don't know how many questions we have for section 2, we update that as we go, because it's not created yet. But that's that, and then you'll see the timing on the furthest right-hand side, okay? We have these nice, right? Now, what you all have seen, everybody has a CAD, and I saw people, and I heard, I think it was Miss Noel in the back, she asked me the question of like, hey, why is it that for the Common Assessment 2, I think it was in geometry, they only go to unit 8, right? What happened to the other units? It's because they don't get through all of the content when the test actually falls. And this is right here, this is your blueprint, teachers, right? So your blueprint, this is this is what you need to go and look at, right? This tells me that for Algebra 1 specifically, Unit 1 is gonna be 25% of that exam, right? So if Unit 1 is 25% of that exam, the things or the standards that are bold, those are the standards that are going to be the priority and that the students are gonna see. So that lets you know as the teacher, hey, when it's time for Common Assessment Prep, that means that this is 25% of the exam. I need to make sure that 8.5A is what I'm really honing in on with my students, as well as, looking at the other ones for 8.5B, right? And now here's the thing, all of these standards are fair game. They're all fair game. They're all fair game. But we do wanna always push our readiness tests, and these are the ones you go here and you identify what are my students going to be assessed on, okay? Any questions about that? Yes, ma'am.
So, just quick question, sir.
Mhm.
So for the CA1 unit breakdown, I'm noticing unit 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 standards. It's based on 25%. So is it each standard within that unit that's covered, or just the one that's bold?
No, it's not 4 standards, so there are 4 units. Oh, you mean 4 standards in each one of those things?
Right.
Yes, no. So, that's a good question. And what course is this for? Okay, you wanna?
Oh, I was gonna say, I think what you're saying is, it's 25% of like the 20 questions. We list all the TEKS in that unit, that doesn't mean that there's gonna be a question on every one of those TEKS. They're all, like she said, it's fair game. We definitely will have a question on the bolded, because it's the priority, we might have 2, but that does not mean a question is gonna come from every TEK. And just like STAR, we don't know what supporting is gonna show up, so you just be prepared for all of them and use your priority TEKS as like your main one to make sure
So
students have
bolded,
mastered.
definitely.
The bolded, which is called your readiness standards.
Yes.
The other ones are called your supporting standards.
Okay, yes, question here?
I'm just curious, would it be readily available for us to access, questions from the common assessment from the previous years? Like 2021, so we could, at least figure it out how are we going to, deliver the craft to our learners?
So that will depend on the course. That's why in the CAD, you'll see notes like the spring 23, spring 22, and spring 21. Those STAR tests are like off limits. Because when Alita is creating the common assessments this year for Math 6 and Math 8, that's gonna be her go-to bank of questions, right? So we decide sort of as a team, okay, like in my GAPAC example of Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-Calc, AQR, Calc, I don't know how I would create 5 brand new common assessments. I'm gonna have to rely very heavily on last year's common assessments to like build this year's common assessment, so I will not be releasing those in any way, shape, or form.
How about, the previous, external assessment? Don't we have it, so,
Which course are you teaching?
geometry?
So with geometry, there isn't an external assessment, right? The closest thing would be like the SAT or the ACT exam. And although those are really good, that's not necessarily what I would say is gonna prepare you for the common assessment. Okay, the nice thing is there are other teachers on your teams that you are going to meet at content team day, that you're gonna become friends with on Teams. You're gonna ask to be invited to their Schoology folders, who are going to like share resources with you.
Yay.
Alright.
2 snaps for those people.
All right, and now what we're gonna do is, we're gonna look at the assessment, the CAD assessment blueprint review, and so what you're going to do, you're gonna work at your table or with an elbow partner, whichever one you prefer, and you're going to identify the following, right? So first, we want you to go ahead and identify when is the first summative assessment and when is the first common assessment, okay? When is your courses, oh, wait a minute, I gotta be kindergarten. It's like, when I say go, cause y'all were like, I'm gonna go do it now, wait, don't do it yet. Identify the first summative and common assessment, then for middle school, you are going to find the MAP testing dates, okay? Middle school only, identify the MAP testing dates, and for high school, you are gonna find your STAR and AP exam dates, okay? Lastly, just talk with each other and identify what are some connections that y'all are seeing between the common assessments, the STAR, and the AP, okay? All right, you guys can go. You have 3 minutes. And 1. All right, so can somebody share out some connections? It'll take about 1 minute. What connections did you all see between the CA, STAR, AP? Anything that was interesting, not interesting? Questions you have? I know I have somebody who has a good question. Yes.
You could just call on.
Go ahead.
So my question was for, I know like in high school, cause I was new to high school teaching, but like we had exam days, and so I asked her, like, are exam days embedded, or is that the common assessment?
And so when she meant like exam day, it's like, I remember in high school, it was a day of like, it was midterms and finals. A day, and the day in which we took our exams. So the common assessment is the closest to what she was thinking of, like, that's the exam day. And so also, we talked about like the similarities, right, the connection. That exam day is important because we have to get our students in the mode of like testing, right? They have to get in like that testing environment, and that's exactly what they're gonna see on the STAR. That's exactly what they're gonna have to do on the AP exams. So they need to get acclimated to what that testing environment is gonna look like. So that's a good question, and the connection. Thank you so much. Anybody else wanna share? Yes, ma'am.
I also have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just about, so I'm teaching 6th grade, so I'm wondering, like, what do they come in having already taken, if that makes sense? Like, have they taken STAR before? Do they understand that, or is this all new to them as well?
Yeah, so they take STAR in elementary, I believe they take, yeah, in third. Yeah. So they start taking. Yeah, so your students are actually going to have experience with those interactive question types. I think this year is like good because almost all of the students in the education system in Texas, they have been exposed to those interactive question types. That was like the zone of uncertainty last year, but everybody has had some experience, so your kids will have it.
And just one thing for all of our 6th grade teachers, first of all, God bless you for the foundation that you lay for all the rest of us. The only students that would be coming to you that haven't taken the STAR test would be students that were in like a private school setting, because private school students do not do the STAR test, they do other things. Or if they are coming from another state, right? Kids from Oklahoma and Louisiana that are coming will not have taken the STAR test, and I couldn't tell you like kind of where they are in terms of their assessments. But at this point, like, almost all your 6th graders will have taken a STAR test, they would have seen the interactive question types, and we're gonna keep exposing. Yes, ma'am?
Is there anywhere we can use like, a model like STAR or anything else for the sake of lockdown browsers?
Other than Aware?
Yeah.
So other than Aware, I don't believe there is a tool that we have other than Aware that will allow for a lockdown browser when you're actually testing. But they do get that experience because in Aware you'll learn in the video that you'll see in about 2 slides.
Okay.
It's 100% lockdown.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to pivot into our summative assessment, like online tools. And so in our CAD, everybody's seen this toolbox section. And so in math, there are 2 big things that are important here. The first one is Aware, right? Aware is the platform I've been saying it a lot, right? Like section 1 happens in Aware, section 1 happens in Aware. What the heck is Aware? You're about to learn. And then Desmos. So inside of Aware, if your course is allowed to use calculators, there is a Desmos calculator that's embedded into Aware. So here's the thing, and thinking about equity purposes, right? Our students are supposed to buy the TI Inspires. Now they're pricey, and so if your student can't afford a TI Inspire, what are we supposed to do? Go let them take the STAR test without, right? Let them take all of their summatives without a calculator because they can't afford one? No. So at Yes Prep, when we utilize Aware, the calculator is going to be embedded in there for those students, and they can utilize it on their summatives, their formative, their summatives, and their common assessment. Okay? Now, we're about to do the nice pivot. I just have to click it for it to go.
Yeah, I think you're gonna need to click it on my screen.
Okay, not on there. So we're gonna pivot in this first video. So there are two videos. Let me set you up. And I know sometimes when we see videos, it's like, oh, no bueno, I'm gonna go to sleep. Don't go to sleep. This video, we have two videos coming up, right? The first one is going to be over what is aware. So this is like 4 minutes, a quick little overview, right? The second one is going to be the student experience that is going to show you what it looks like for a student to be in Aware, what are those interactive question types, that lockdown browser, how can they access their calculator, all of those good things you are going to see in the second video, okay? So again, first video is gonna be, what the heck is this Aware that we keep talking about?
Over what is Aware and why we use it, as well as how Aware gets information. Once we have that covered, we'll go ahead and begin the rest of the Aware training. Meet Eddie. He's a superpowered cat with quite a mustache. He's the official mascot of Aware. Aware is an end-to-end system for simplifying test construction, administering assessments, and analyzing student progress. All unit exams and common assessments will be created by the academics team in Aware. Teachers are responsible for assigning the exams or administering them to students. And students use the student portal of Aware to take the test. Finally, data is populated in Aware once all scores are entered by you. Aware receives this information regarding students, teachers, and staff accounts, as well as class rosters, teacher record, and courses from Skyward. Skyward syncs with Aware overnight. Changes in the teacher record, courses, and rosters will impact what is visible in Aware. Since it takes overnight for the changes to sync and be visible in Aware, any changes made during the school day will not be visible until the next day. Accounts in Aware are set based on Skyward settings. Student accounts are automatically set and are not created manually. We're not able to add students to Aware manually. If you can't see a student that should be in your roster, please connect with the registrar to make sure the student settings are correct in Skyward. Staff and teacher Aware accounts are connected to this account manually. If you're new to YES, you will receive an email when your account is created. The email will include your temporary password. Your login is your YesPrep email account. Please update the password when you access your account. If you have not received an email from Euphoria, please reach out to your CTC for next steps. The information you see on your Aware homepage comes from Skyward. This information includes your courses and roster list. If your courses are not there, please check with your PCO to make sure that your settings are correct in Skyward. This includes that you are the teacher of record and that no one else is assigned as a teacher of record for this course. If a change was made within 24 hours, please wait for Skyward to sync with Aware. If all is set correctly and you still cannot see a class or roster that you should be able to see, please submit a ticket to the YesPrep service portal so the team can check on the issue. Information on how to submit a ticket is available on the assessment SharePoint. Assessments are assigned to courses by the content team. If you are unable to see your course in Aware, you will not be able to see the assessments assigned to the course and test your students. Please make sure to check the assessment availability a few days before you are to assign the test to students to make sure you can access it. We're not able to assign tests to students directly. Now that you know what Aware is and how information is Aware, you're ready to begin the rest of the training. Please make sure you have an account in Aware. If you are unsure on how to access Aware, please reach out to your CTC. Make sure to complete the training ahead of assigning your first assignment. Resources will also be available through the Student Assessment SharePoint. These include guides on the different steps you need to take to assign a student a test. And we recommend you take the time to practice these steps before assigning your first assessment.
Okay, all right, so Aware video, right? What is Aware? We figured it out, right? Right, take a deep breath in, exhale. So, I have a few questions. Keep it over, yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Number one, the AWARE training. First of all, our system has not changed from last year to this year. Last year at this time, we were like training like hundreds and hundreds of teachers on AWARE, and nobody was really clear. All of your experienced teachers, you're like, I know exactly what to do. I can show you what you need to do. That's good. So find those experienced math teachers on your campus and be like, help me, please help me. The other thing is all of our formative assessments and all of our summative assessments are built in what? AWARE. And Math 6 through Algebra 1, you have those formative assessments every single week. So like by the end of that first week of August of school, you need to be ready to roll out your assessment in AWARE. So you really need to prioritize that. For geometry and above, you get the next week because it's a every other week situation.
All right, so I know we need some candy because I want some candy, so I think I automatically win. I'm actually very competitive, okay? So I automatically win because I'm the presenter, JK. But I have some questions and I want to see who wants some candy. First question is, who is assigning these tests in AWARE? Who assigns the test? Okay, okay, go ahead. Who is we?
You.
The teachers, good job. So the teachers, you're assigning that in AWARE. Okay, question. How long does it take for data to sync in AWARE? Ooh, okay, look, I'm gonna have to let a leader. Ooh, no, don't let me.
I'm gonna go with
Go ahead, all right.
Gustavo, you got an advantage. You got new news.
He cheated.
You've been here with me last year.
It takes 1 day. It takes 1 day? All right, good job. So it takes 1 day, right? 24 hours for it to sync. Let's think about this other one. Where does information in AWARE come from? Where did they get all the pesky stuff? What you got? All right, it comes from Skyward. All the information that's in AWARE comes from Skyward. Now this is a tricky question, okay? Tricky question. If you go into AWARE, and it's time, because you're a great teacher, so you're not going to be the teacher that looks at the test and decides to assign it to data. You're a great teacher. You're going to do it the day before or a couple days before. If you go into AWARE and you're like, I'm supposed to be given the Algebra 2 formative assessment, and it is nowhere to be found, who are you going to contact? Actually, I'm actually very specific. If it's for any course, right? Any course. If you go in there, you can't see him, who are you contacting? I think I saw your hand right here. Okay. Who would you contact?
I'm assuming somebody on the support team.
She said she's assuming somebody on the support team. I think, okay, let's see, hold on. Let me see back here what you got.
According to the video, it said your CTC.
This is the CTC, all right. Ooh.
Which is what the video said, and unfortunately that position doesn't exist anymore.
That's why I said according to the video.
Right,
Check the support on the CAD. That's last year's video, that position's gone.
So, we're gonna give both of them.
I think you get 2.
Right, we'll give both of them candy. So here's the thing, you can't, every campus doesn't have a campus testing coordinator anymore. So if you look and you can't find it, contact your content specialist, right? The first thing is, if you see that a test is supposed to be there and it's not, it most likely is some type of small error and it's very easy to fix. So please let us know, because if we don't know, that means that it's an honest mistake and we didn't realize that test was not showing up. And again, it's a very quick fix. So if you do see that, please make sure that you contact like one of the content specialists so we can fix it. Because if it's wrong for you and causing problems, it's causing problems for everybody in the district, and we don't want that, okay? So, thank y'all for engaging in those questions. I see some of us got some candy and we feel a little bit better. So now we're gonna transition.
And I feel better because I thought the answer you were pushing them to was Keith DeRozier.
Yes.
That's why I changed it.
Did I say that? No.
He said
No
pushing
candy.
pushing to
Wait,
pushing.
all right, so don't call Keith DeRozier, you guys. Don't call Keith DeRozier. Okay, so, hi. Oh, wait, okay, so now we've learned a little bit about AWARE, right? We know where all of our information comes from. We know who to contact, not Keith DeRoger. We know, a few things about Aware now. So now what you're gonna see is the student experience and how students are gonna interact with those questions and all the features in Aware.
Now I'm gonna show you the student experience when taking an assessment in Aware, along with how the new interactive question types from STAR will look like in Aware. After a student logs into their Aware profile, they will see all the assessments that are currently available for them to take. This is why it's important that students only have access to the exams during your testing window. So first, the student will click on the name of the test. Depending on your connectivity, it might take a little while. Right here, they can see the name of the test and their name. They can change the color theme of the screen as needed. They can zoom in and out. If text-to-speech is available, there'll be an icon with a page and audio, and they'll be able to select the volume as well as the language if that is an option, and the level and the voice gender. Students can add a note to any questions, either annotate their thoughts or to ask you a question, and you'll be able to see it on your teacher dash if there are any questions that the students have. The question guides allow students to see how many questions, if they have unanswered, if they flagged any, or how many are answered. And students can exit the tab. However, with lockdown browser, students will not be able to exit the tab unless they have reviewed and submitted for scoring. Exiting the test does not submit it for scoring. Students can also flag a question if they would like to come back at a later time. The question numbers down here lets them skip to different questions, and they can also use the previous or the next arrow to get different questions. All right, starting with hot text. Students that seeing a hot text question will have multiple options that they can click to select as the correct answer. In this question, we're looking for nouns. When I click it, the color changes. If I have made an error, I can unclick it and click the right one. I can also click all for my answers to be erased and start again. This option is available in all question types except constructive response. And on inline choice, students have a drop-down option of multiple correct answers. They will pick the right one and can go ahead and continue. If they feel like this is incorrect, they can go back and change it. In text entry, there will be boxes available for the student to enter what they think is the right answer without having a multiple choice or a database of possible answers. Once they enter, they can move on, they can clear all as well. In multi-select, students have multiple answers that are correct. They can remove answers that they know are incorrect by clicking here. And then they can select the correct answers. And drag and drop, students will have questions and answer plus many answer options. They will go ahead and select what they think are the right choices and place them in the answer boxes. If they think that they need to change their answers, they can go ahead and hover over and it will swap. They don't need to necessarily move them back, they can. In hotspot, students will see an image along with dotted either circles or squares. These are their possible possible answer options. Once they hover over them, the color will change to yellow, and when they click on it, it will be automatically yellow. In the match table grid, students will see a table with multiple options for their answers. They can go ahead and click the right answers as they say, and it will switch it. They don't need to unclick it to switch columns. In the number line, students can add what they think might be different options and use drop-in. They can go ahead and drag as needed. I remove this. And remove the one which I think is correct. In the fraction model, this is very interactive. They will select the number of total parts, and this will change as they click, and then it will shade in their answers. They could also use improper fractions here if needed, and they might be a circle or it could be a square. In the constructor response, there are two options. They'll either be short or explicit. There might be character limit imposed. If there are none, this will be able to be moved. Students will be able to enter their answers, sorry. And they have rich text that they can use as needed. In multi-choice, it's a multiple choice question, so again, they can eliminate errors and select what they choose the right one. And in graphing, they can go ahead and select 2 points at times. They might connect depending on what the test creator has set up, or they may not. If they think the answers are a little bit different, they can go ahead and highlight, grab the dot and move them, and the line will move with it. Depending on the grade level, there might also be 4 points that are possible for them to enter. Once the student's done, they will hit review and submit. Here they will see all their questions. And if they have flagged any, they would go ahead and see that. Also any notes. And then they will click submit to score. Once the student clicks submit to score, they are no longer able to see their assessment. If for some reason submit to score was clicked by accident, the teacher is able to reopen the test for them. How to reopen the test for them is in the video that shows you how to proctor an online exam in Aware. And this is the student experience when testing in Aware.
All right, so now we have finally seen the student experience from testing, right? Can somebody tell me, I want you to take about 30 seconds to process, what is something that you are excited about after seeing the student experience in Aware? Take about 5 more seconds. What is something that you are excited about, or even just more curious about after seeing the video with the student experience? Anybody want to share? Go ahead. Yep, I got 1, then 2.
So, looking back at my experience in teaching, I've always noticed that students are really good with their cell phones, but not so much with their computers. So I'm glad that, yes, this is good for like an active learning and interactivity with the questions, but also just becoming familiar with like user interfaces in general that might need when they're older.
Good job. I really love that. And yeah, we are here, and we'll see. Maybe next year we'll talk more about, like, there is a specific goal at Yes Prep to make sure that students are tech savvy, and make sure that they get that exposure to those different platforms and get those technology skills, right? So, yes.
I thought since like all exams are gonna be online, it was gonna be multiple choice or fill in the blank, but I'm really surprised by the range of different type of questions that you can ask.
Yeah, so those now, I don't know, you gotta ask Keith Rogan over there. But I know this is, that range is definitely like one of those things that is like I guess it's like one of the unique things about the things in which we have at Yes Prep, because you can expose your students to those different things, and it allows you to assess what it is they know in a variety of different ways, not just multiple choice, right? And when we think about if students can learn, and if they understand something, it's typically like if they're able to explain it. So if you can go and graph, if you can put the correct answers in the text entry box, or if you, like I said, inequality graphing on a number line, you can do those things. Those are things that you have to have the skills to know how to do, so we're able to assess them in a variety of ways. A question for you all is, can students see the total number of questions in Aware? Yeah, right, they're able to see it, right? It pops up, they can go and see all of those questions. Are students able to leave the test once they start? Oh, no, in Aware it's on lockdown browser. So, when we design all of the assessments, we click the lockdown browser, so every summative and formative and summative test that students interact with will be 100% lockdown browser. Are students able to like remove any questions they don't, or answer choices they don't want? Right, they're able to, we saw that in there. Now, when it comes to the number line, so this is a tricky one. We saw her do like a number line drawing on there with the inequalities. How do students do that? Are they drawing that with their fingers? Like, are they have to, like we did on Schoology yesterday? Everybody had little wiggly lines, like squiggly lines, because we can make them. Are they expected to like draw using their hand or anything like that? Right, so they give them all of those tools that they're preset for them. And then what about, is there ever an instant where students are expected to choose more than one answer? Right, so that's that multi-select. There may be a time where you tell students to choose two of the multiple choice, right? Like, it looks like a normal multiple choice, and it is. They need to select two answer choices. There may be, when they're graphing and we use the hotspot, they need to select three, right? You saw the picture up there, and I do want to note that in math, that was like an English example. In math, a lot of the graphs, especially in Algebra 1, you'll see those graphs, the hotspots. Students have to select the correct features of those graphs, and that's how we utilize those. And then, last question for you all. Are students able to see, or when are students able to see all of, like, any questions that were unanswered or flagged or answered? When do they see that? Say it one more louder. Right, so right before they submit that exam, you know, you got some kids who's like, I did real good, miss, I was working hard, and it's like, all right, review and submit. Ooh, I was working hard, but oh man, I forgot this one question was unanswered. So the good thing about that is before they submit it, guess what? It's going to actually show them, go back, so that way they don't submit a test and they hadn't did those questions, okay?
Earlier, you asked something that you're excited about and aware, and you all may not know this, but here's something, I give your neighbor a nudge, make sure that they hear this part. In Aware, for math, all of the questions are automatically scored by the Aware system. The drop-down menu, the hotspot questions, they are all automatically scored. If this was the room filled with social studies teachers or ELA teachers, where there's like typed responses, the open-ended responses, all of those questions you have to go through and score manually. For math, all of our question types are scored automatically by Aware. So I think that is a 2 claps on 2 for the folks at Aware. Ready? 1, 2. 1, 2.
And what I'm excited about that came later in the year is we have this overlay graph paper. So we were like, how are they gonna graph? How are they gonna do all these things online? There's a feature that wasn't showed in the video where there's an overlay. They can put it on the graph. They can use it as scratch pad. They can make it transparent. They could graph a line on top of whatever it is. So make sure your students practice with that and be able to use it on STAR.
Yep, and then for our STAR tested courses, last thing, just remember, I'm gonna always emphasize, give your students those formative and summative assessments that we are preparing, and we have created, because it's going to prep them for, you know, everything that is to come. They'll see that number line in Algebra 1, just FYI, okay? So, now, what are the benefits, right? We talked about a lot of things that we like, a lot of things, we've shared as content specialists, but like the benefits, thinking about the fact that this STAR test, right? The STAR did a 100% redesign, last year. We are able to replicate those, interactive question types for our students. So at first we were struggling to figure out how the heck are we going to get students to, like, you know, do inequality graphic? How are we gonna get them to see what is it that which one is it that y'all use a lot in Math 6? Which interactive question type do you use the most? She said all of them, right? The multiple select, like, those are like, we didn't know how we were going to expose them to that, and this is what I can say, at Yes Prep, luckily, we have done a great job at exposing our students to this, because we did a great job on the STAR. You'll learn about that later. But we did a great job, right? And our students were well prepared for the STAR test when they came May, and they didn't have issues when it came to the interactive question types, because they were exposed to almost every question type that you can think of in all of their STAR courses. Then we think about the lockdown browser. Something that is very annoying as a teacher is if you don't have a lockdown browser and students are supposed to be testing, or they go and they copy that question and they put it in Google, and you like, oh man, you go up and you see them with two screens. That is very stressful. You see two screens. That is very stressful. That was something that was happening even during common assessments before. But now with the luxury of these lockdown browsers, no bueno, right? You can't go anywhere. You can only go in Aware and take that test, so that increases the fidelity of the results that we are getting about our students learning. And then when it comes to the Aware login, right? So students are able, we have this whole system where students log in. You know how you log in using your same credentials to get into just about everything? Students have that same experience. And so students, don't let them finesse you after Unit 1, okay? Maybe the first 2 weeks they gonna get you, but after that, no. They know their login. It's the same thing they use for everything in Aware, but the good thing about that is it is the same, and it's an easy way for students to access it. And then again, accountability, y'all. Mr. DeRosa just said, y'all, we don't have to grade section 1, like, just give some snaps for that again. We don't have to grade section 1. Nobody wants to grade those interactive question types. It's a lot of work to go in there and grade, but it's automatically gonna grade it for you, and then guess what? It is gonna populate the data, and you're gonna be able to go and analyze it. So that's what we have here with Aware. And then just touching on a few more things before I pass it over, right? When it comes to the exam score and reporting, teachers are going, like, this is what happens. The student takes the exam, right? They take their assessment inside of Aware. The teachers record non-multiple choice scores of section 2, right? You grade it, you record that in Aware, and then there's a report that is populated in Power BI, you'll learn about that later, and it shows you the adjusted grades for your students, right? The curved grades, that's what you'll see, and that was tied to the cut scores that you saw in the CAD. So again, this is what you all are gonna see, and so you will see how students are performing. Are they at a level, right? You'll get the levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are the AP scores. And so again, the process is fairly simple, way more simplistic than when I joined here at Yes Prep, and one that we actually, I think that we are benefiting very well from. Now, the last thing, what questions do we still have about internal, I don't know about the external, internal assessments? What questions or any lingering things do we need or want to know about quizzes, summative assessments, or even a common assessment? If there are.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I know with the CAPAS, proctors are supposed to, the students have to check with the proctors before they submit their final answers. So I don't know about in Aware, is it the same thing that the students before they submit? Because oftentimes when they get to the last page before they submit, they say, oh yeah, all the questions have been answered. Now, if there are some questions that have not been answered, and do they check with the app teachers before?
And then just to make sure I heard that correctly, you said the test, or did you mention the TELPAS?
In the text.
In the test, okay, I'm sorry, I thought I heard TELPAS. Yeah, so for the test, that is typically like a routine and procedure that they do. The teacher will tell the students like to raise their hand and let them know once they're done, and that's just a way for the teacher, like you said, to go over and check and make sure, okay, you're good. I will state that I know for what I've seen in all 7 years, when it comes, especially at the common assessment, we are like, no, you are not submitting that exam before because it is a very high stakes test. So I think that is just one of those routines and procedures that you build in your class, and like telling students like raise their hand, so that way you can check and make sure that they are good before submitting. Any other questions? Well, now I'm going to turn it over to Keith DeRozier, who is going to lead us through special populations.
Okay, it's 11:14. I need everybody to just stand up for a little bit. Prep assessment. What we're talking about is supports for our special population students. I say special population students. Who are we talking about? Identify some groups. EB, emergent bilingual students. 504 students. Who else? Students with IEPs, right? At your old school system, maybe you refer to it as like my accommodated students and my modified students. The new to blue folks, is that right? That was like the vocabulary? Okay, we no longer talk about accommodated and modified. We talk about CLS and CLS plus. Okay, so special populations programming. In special ed, this is specifically designed instruction to meet the unique needs of a student with a disability, providing special ed services to support students towards making progress to meet their academic and their functional goals. This is something that campuses are hyper aware of. The state is very aware of. We need to make sure we are meeting the needs of all of our students. You are all going to have students who come into you behind grade level. There is a learning disability. There is a learning gap of some sort. We will meet that need. And you have an army of people on your campus that are going to support. You've got your emergent bilinguals. So this is like programming and supports for students who are in the process of acquiring English and they have a primary language other than English. Where are my Gulfton folks? The Gulfton campus, there are so many languages represented there. It is like the United Nations. It is amazing. Emergent bilinguals, I'm not just talking about students who speak Spanish. There are like 20 or more languages spoken by the families at the Gulfton campus. It is amazing to see that campus in action and what they do to support. Section 504, these are students that have access to accommodations for a student who has maybe a physical or a mental impairment. We have students at some of our campuses who are blind, students who are deaf. This falls into the category of like other health impairment. It's not a learning disability. My daughter who has ADHD, like for 5 kids worth of ADHD, falls under 504, and there's extra supports that are in place. Maybe it's extra time, maybe it's like colored overlays, maybe it's, small group testing. These are the kinds of things that we're talking about. In terms of our exams, we have our Gen Ed exam, right, which is taken by, call it 90% of the students. And then we have our CLS, and the CLS stands for Content Language Support. What does CLS stand for?
Content Language Support.
Everybody one more time?
Content Language Support.
Excellent. So this is embedded into the exam. The content language support, I'll show you an example in just a little bit. It could be images connected to unfamiliar vocabulary terms, right? We don't want our emergent bilingual students getting having a block because they don't know a particular vocabulary term, right? Maybe they don't know, there was like a question about baseball and there was something about the pitcher and it was like, I don't know what the pitcher is. Like that's not a content specific word that I know about. And so there could be an image of the pitcher to be like, oh, I know what that role is. So those are examples. It could also be that there's formulas that pop up or other supports that are in place. The lowest grade a student can earn on a test is a 60. This is true for all of our students unless there's an honor code violation. Okay, CLS plus, what was that CLS again?
Content Language Support.
Content language supports. The plus means something more, right? So you get your content language supports, you get the bolded words, you get the images, you get the things, and you might also have on section 2 a reduction in the rigor of the questions, because these are students that require even more support. The good news is that working with the content specialists, working with our Special POPs curriculum writers, they are the ones that write the CLS and the CLS Plus versions of the formative and the summative and the common assessments. Okay? Now, who does the lesson planning? You all do the lesson planning. And you will get support at your campus to best meet the needs of CLS and CLS Plus students. And I've been teaching for 25 years, and every time I have a student who has a 504, they receive the CLS, the CLS Plus, it is a learning curve for me to figure out what exactly is it that I need to do to help you reach your fullest potential, and it's different from kid to kid. Okay, so content and language supports in math, if you had an exam in front of you, right, so a customer is buying bath towels and hand towels and can spend no more than $100. Each bath towel costs $8 and each hand towel costs $5. If my vocabulary does not actually involve bath towels and hand towels, that's not part of like my working vocabulary, that is an unintended barrier in this question. And so what a student can do in Aware is they can like click on bath towels and hand towels, and now they've got, oh, this is bath towel, this is hand towel. I've got a visual of what it is. This is not a hint in the problem, right? This is just, let's remove an unintended barrier for that particular student. Pretty good? And it happens in Aware in a very subtle kind of way. So I have one student who's taking the Gen Ed version. I have the other student who's taking the CLS version. They're seeing the same questions, but the CLS student has access to a little bit more. And they still have like their privacy. Okay? All right, we already kind of talked about that, so I'm gonna skip over that. Okay, our internal and summative assessment versions, we have 3 kinds. You have your standard kind, your Gen Ed population. You have your CLS, which is a content language support, and we'll add the CLS to both section 1 and section 2. And on the CLS Plus, they get the content language support in section 1. We don't reduce the rigor in section 1. The reason for that is all of our 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade students, when they take the STAR test, they're going to take the same STAR test. The difference is if I'm a CLS student, I get access to the content language supports. But there's not a reduced rigor exam. How many of y'all have been teaching long enough that you know that there used to be like STAR Alt or STAR Modified, right? There was a like, oh, you're a 6th grader and everybody takes this one except for you, you take this like reduced. That is not the way things work anymore. All of our 6th graders will take the same 6th grade STAR exam. The difference is, do they have access to content language supports or not? Do they get access to a calculator or not? Okay. On the section 2, that is where you will see a reduction in rigor. You'll see a different scoring rubric. You'll see fewer questions because section 2 is not STAR aligned. Section 1 is STAR aligned. And we want to make sure that we're holding kids accountable and supporting them. We're going to skip that because I've got a minute. Supplemental aids. Supplemental aids, this is an additional handout, an additional support. You get 2 flavors of supplemental aids. You have over on the left what we call the Teach version. The Teach version of the supplemental aid is available to all students on day 1 of the unit. Who gets access to this? All of our students, right? This could be a word wall, it could be an anchor chart, This is the thing that you're gonna wanna provide all of your students access to. When it comes to the test version, you might notice that there are some differences here. On the test version, only identified students are able to get the test version. Okay, let's get some hands on this. This is like one of those like magazine articles. Different between left and right. What are we saying? Wait, what? The right side is blank. Okay, what else? Other like specific differences. Something you see on the left that you don't see on the right. There's no worked out examples. What else? The chart, this guy here?
No, the one on the right, the table, the chart.
Oh, the chart on the right. There's like all this information about 36 over on the left. There is no information on the right. The test version, there are very strict rules that TEA has in place around what you can provide as a supplemental aid during an assessment, and we need to follow those rules. And so let's be real, if on the test, for the first time, I give this to my students, how much support is provided here? Like, let's be real, none. If they have not seen this version, if they haven't practiced with this version does not help, or as a good friend of mine would like to say, it's no bueno. It's no bueno, okay? So everybody gets access to the test version, turn it into a word wall anchor chart. Identified students get the test version on test days. Okay? And there's an Algebra 2 version, again, like better on the left, better on the right, lots of stuff provided on the left, less stuff provided on the right. Here it says f of x equals x, no, you need to know. F of x equals the absolute value of x, you need to know. Right, it's different levels of support, but if the kid has never gotten access to the thing on the left, the thing on the right is not gonna do it for them. Okay, so with that, we are going to end. Our next session starts, in 3 minutes at 11:30. No. We are going,